Okay, welcome everyone. This is the School District of Prescott Board of Education regular meeting. We'll call the meeting to order for subjects 1983 Wisconsin statutes, and our first item is to adopt the agenda. Rick, is there any changes?
There are no changes from administration.
All right, next item is, we gotta actually take a motion to adopt the agenda. I'm moving along too fast.
I move to adopt the agenda as presented.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. Next item, Pledge of Allegiance. Helen, you want to lead us?
Yeah. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, so move on to recognition of visitors. As always, the rules for public comments are to approach the podium one at a time, stating your name, municipality, and topic you'd like to address. The allotted time is 3 minutes per individual. Thank you. Or 6 minutes if you're representing a group that is present at the meeting. All comments should be directed to the board and not to staff or other participants. The board will not act on any comments that are made during a meeting. The presiding officer may direct the district administrator to follow up with that individual at a later date. And the public comment section will be limited to 30 minutes unless board action is taken to extend. And as always, please refer to our public comment policy listed on the agenda for a full description. Anybody at this point care to be recognized? I will take that as a no. We'll move on. Thank you. To good news. Item 5 is good news.
And we will start with our student representative, Katie Hooper.
To kick off being back at school, last week was Snowfest week, which included dress-up days and an assembly on Friday where students competed against the other grades for the Cardinal Cup. Last Monday, National Honor Society students volunteered at the Coaches vs. Cancer game to raise money for cancer. And then on the sports side, the boys basketball team is having a successful season and are currently 9-4. And the dance team took first place in pom, jazz, and were overall middle border conference champs at their recent competition in Eau Claire. Their season is wrapping up fast with the regionals being next weekend. And that's all.
Thank you very much, Katie. From the superintendent chair, I just wanted to announce that tonight the Chamber of Commerce is having their special annual dinner, and they honor both businesses as well as Educator of the Year. Andrea Hintz, who is an individual that we partner with St. Joe's to serve our 4K program, has been identified as the Educator of the Year. So we wanted to send out to Andrea our congratulations. One of the joys I had before December was to be able to take the nominations and send it out to anybody that had been nominated. And we had over 42 submissions, and being able to send that out to our staff right before winter break was, I guess, just a spark of joy. And it was good to see the reactions that it provided. So again, thank you to the Chamber for partnering with us with regards to honoring and acknowledging individuals that serve public education. Administration team.
All right, as the admin rep for today, just got one quick thing from the intermediate school after the last board meeting, just before that Friday before the winter break. We did a mindfulness activity with our kiddos as they're kind of amping up and getting ready for that break. And I just want to thank Miss Early, our new counselor at the elementary school. She put together a staff that led students in some yoga in the gymnasium. We also had some crafts and arts going on, and then one of my favorites is always passing on my family tradition of making snowflakes out of coffee filters. So if you drive past the intermediate school, especially on the locust side, you'll see all of the windows in the cafeteria are completely filled with snowflakes made by our students. So thanks again, Ms. Early, for bringing that mindfulness activity to our kiddos, and which they really enjoyed. We also want to say thank you to the basketball and sports teams that are coming by and greeting our students in the morning. I know they're at all the different sites, and that's great for the kids to interact with the high schoolers and give high fives and get signatures and things like that. It's assessment season. Our access testing, we're scheduling that out. That's due by the end of the month, and that's for our ELL kiddos. So we've got Mr. Conan doing that, and appreciate that he's taking that on. Our Fast Bridge screening now is completed at all of our sites, and that's a K-8 screener that we do. We have some ACT accommodations that Ms. Strand is working with the high school special ed department to get into the system. It's due by the end of the month, and get those for our kiddos for the spring. And then finally, this week we kicked off Ames Web Plus, which is the new state-required screener for Act 20, the reading. And we did that at the elementary level, so it's been many months of planning, coordinating. Just want to thank Andy Holland, Amy Figge, and Principal Dusick for going on that journey with me, and we're there. And today we logged in, and we have no kids. So it's always those things of technology and then updates that happen overnight that don't quite push right, but through the wizardness of Andy Holland, we have our kids back and restored by 10 a.m. and able to carry on. So that's where we are in teaching and learning.
Thank you. No, we're good.
All right. We're going to move on to school business. First item is the consent agenda. We have the December 20th, 2024 regular board minutes, as well as the January 8th, 2025 special board meeting minutes. Finance reports, personnel report for non-licensed staff, and I think that's it. Yeah. Is there anything in here that the board would like to pull out of the consent agenda for discussion?
No.
All right. I will adopt the consent agenda. Any objections?
No.
All right, the consent agenda is adopted.
And I did just want to make note, one of the individuals in the consent agenda was Jackie Montreal, who works in the district office, has been with us and serving as our student enrollment report and purchase orders and accounts payable. And so we wish her well as she moves on to a great opportunity within the area. And I did also want to share with the board at this time, we are going to keep that position open. And we will come back at a later time if we believe it needs to be posted.
All right. All right, thanks, Rick. We can move on to, that was a consent. Okay, so we're going to move on to item B, consider personnel reports for licensed staff, and we have one resignation.
And correct, and that's from the high school, English Language Arts, and that's Aria Wells.
Anybody have any questions on this one or comments?
No.
No questions.
And we have one retirement.
Yeah.
Regretfully.
Technically, we did retire last month, and it was put in open session, but given that we're here after the break, I will be submitted my retirement for June 30th after 10 years within Prescott. Very proud of the work and being able to partner with an incredible board, different educators throughout the years, and very happy to see how a district that is aligned and continues to work on continuous improvement in the academics, the arts, and athletics can really thrive. And so there's a lot of excitement for who will succeed me, and I think that that's the work of the board and also partnering alignment with our staff and obviously with our community. Do want to thank the administration team. You have to be able to trust the ability for each individual to cover their areas and our supervisors, and I couldn't have done and accomplished half of what we've been able to do over these last 10 years without the excellence that is in every position. And for that, I'll always be very grateful. So thank you.
Tanya, do you have anything to comment on here?
Well, I certainly do. Yeah, this is a hard one for us. I would say, Rick, you have been the superintendent of this district for 10 years. It's been the whole entire time I've been on the school board. I've worked with many superintendents in the past, but I don't think that people within the community or outside of like our close kind of knit home of leaders and school board members and stuff like that understand how much energy and effort you put into the success of this district. And it's endless, your research, your data. I remember it was maybe 4 or 5 years ago, we had to ask Rick, maybe it was even longer ago, we had to ask Rick to stop sending us so much data and email and stuff. And we had to ask, you can thank us, leadership team, because we were like, I don't think they want that much either. Like, it's too much. And it was because you are constantly researching, constantly looking up stuff and trying to make us better. I looked up some old data just to kind of see where you came on here. And so 2017, so you had been in the district, you had been in the district for about a year, 2 years, right? And so I looked at our 2017 report card, and Michael, I think this was before you were presenting to us, so it wasn't nearly as great of data, but it was there. So back in 2017, I looked at Michael's comparables from November. I think there was 13 districts that Michael compared us to within our conference in Hudson and stuff like that. And I took all of those districts and I looked at where they were on the report card compared to us, and we would have, as a district, Prescott would have been between 9th and 10th. We would have been number 9 or 10 back in 2017, basically as you were gifted us on that. And I say 9 or 10 because I couldn't find the data for Altoona, so who knows where that was. But now, and we were shared this in November, we're number 1 within all of those. And that doesn't come from, you carelessly coming in here and just kind of going through the motions. It's like, it is that laser focus. It is that research, that drive. And I think the biggest legacy is the administrative team that you have put together here. Every single leader within our district, except for one, our grounds, I think you have put in place here yourself. And so that's a legacy that'll continue within our district. You've worked with people, you've worked with leaders within our district to elevate, and then you've brought in really great people. I feel super confident, Rick, that you're leaving us as a district that people want to come to, staff want to come to, families want to come to, and future superintendents want to come to. So I'm forever grateful for you. I think our community and our students, and I can say for my kids, they have a better education because you are part of it. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well said, Tanya. Pat?
I'm not going to follow that up. But ditto. And we still have, unfortunately for you, a number of more months, right, that we'll get a chance to talk and thank you for all your work. But I agree with everything Tanya said. And we'll have some additional time. But just congratulations on your retirement. Very excited for you and your family.
Thanks, Pat. Yeah, we got six hard months yet.
Yep.
I would like to say that coming on as a new board member right before COVID hit and trying to kind of get the lay of the land and figure it out, and Rick was always available to answer questions, and then we ran into COVID, and if it weren't for the back and forth, the emails, the calls, all of that stuff, and making himself really accessible to me to try and figure out how to navigate all of this school board stuff just coming in, I think would have been a lot more difficult. He was very willing to answer any questions at any time, and I certainly appreciated that. I think I've learned to I've got a greater understanding of how schools operate, having never had the experience of having kids in one. My last experience in school was me. So learning how the state of Wisconsin operates, all of that information has come from you, and I greatly appreciate that. I think that's made me a better board member. It's given me the drive, actually, to look into a few more things, and I thank you for that, because otherwise I think they would have been things that just would never have popped up for me. So I appreciate all of the extra effort, but in fewer emails.
And thanks for the work you do at CISA 11.
Yeah.
Helen, do you?
I guess I'm the only one on here that has a unique perspective of working with you on two different levels, as a teacher in Prescott and now on the board. And I guess my daughter kind of summed it up the best. She said, "Oh my God, Mom, he's everywhere." And I said, "What do you mean?" She said, "He's everywhere. I see him at school. I see him at events. I see him, sometimes when I don't want to, he's everywhere. He's everywhere." And I think that's the biggest thing that, as a board member now, as a teacher before, as a parent in the district, it's amazing the work you've put in, and amazing the time that students know you, and that's the biggest thing, and that's something that I think you should be really proud of, and everything you've done for the students and the staff. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thanks, Helen. Katie, do you want to say anything?
Well, I've only been here a few months, but I have a new perspective on what you do with your job, so I'm really more appreciative of what you do. So thank you.
Thanks. Rick, 10 years, academics was one of the key things that Tanya highlighted. I will also point out that when Rick came on, we had just passed a referendum for facilities for the high school, for this building here. And he took that project and saw it from start to completion, and it was not easy. There was a lot of headaches that went on as this building went up, and from that point on, Rick led us for the next 10 years. I'd like to just bring up, COVID especially, and how hard that was on everybody. And somebody once said that it's easy to lead when things are going well, right? It's easy to lead when things are going well. When things are hard, when things get tough, when the going gets tough, that's where true leaders show who they are. And Rick was one of the pinnacles of this district to lead us through probably the toughest time in Prescott school district history, and maybe just in general for our country, to lead us through that for Prescott. A lot of superintendents, a lot of administration bailed during, and I don't blame them. It was crushing to go through that, but Rick stuck with it. We stuck with him. I'm proud of that we all stuck with Rick, and when we had his back too. And that's frankly maybe one of the only reasons that we all got through it, is because we stuck together. Rick, I will say this, we've been colleagues for 10 years. I consider you my friend, and I'm very happy to get you to this point where you can, on your own, go out on your own terms, and that's important to you, and it was important to me too. So thank you for all that you've done, and we got 6 months to beat on you for a little while here, so we'll make sure we do that.
Well, Courtney and I kept on eliminating this from the agenda, because I was like, well, technically it all occurred last month, but I appreciate it. I get to go see my mother next Friday, and I'll ask Courtney and Andy if you could kind of freeze that tape, and I can play it back so that my siblings can also hear that. So, okay. Thank you all.
So we have a motion to make here to approve the report.
Go ahead.
You go for it.
I move to approve the personnel report for the licensed staff listed above.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That one carries. And we're going to move on to item C, review proposals. All right.
There you go. Back at you.
Review proposals to complete an HR job study for PSD employees.
Yes, this is coming back to the board, and it's based on some questions that you had. We did put out 4 proposals. We had winnowed it down, Chantel, who is our HR coordinator, to Alara, and another proposal. We are recommending that we work with Alara HR in Tune. There was a question, Vicki, you had asked us to come back out and speak to making sure that not only were wages included, but there would be an evaluation of benefits, healthcare, and else. The other vendor, it would add another $9,000 to $11,000 to their bid. Alera, believe it or not, that is their wheelhouse. That is how they initially started as a company. They deal with benefit packages, healthcare, and not only just healthcare, but also the different tiers. Right now in Prescott, we offer an individual or family, and there is no alternative. And so it's something that last time when we were going out for bids on healthcare, we were looking at, could it be an individual plus one? How would the rates look like? Alera is moving in the direction of benchmarking wages. And so what I can share with you is that there is no additional cost from Alera with regards to including healthcare and benefits. They also provided up to 14 other districts because we had asked specifically, and I shared with you the names of those districts. Chantel and I were able to call every one of those districts and send emails. I can share with you there was not one negative comment. Everybody was very basically positive with regards to things that matter when you're working with a third party, and that was that they were responsive to questions. They were on time. They hold the district accountable to make sure if there are timelines that we're getting them the information that they need. And things that we have talked about over the last few months, because this was part of our referendum, is that we would do this process, is that there's kind of a upfront meeting, and then there will be the ability for us to get the report early spring. I would suspect it'll probably take us 6 weeks internally to digest it, meaning sharing that information with our staff, both salary and hourly, and then being able to kind of generate what that might look like for fall 2025 and then beyond. And so at this point, we have the summary, we listed the information, and I think I would say even more sold that Alera would be the recommendation from administration and HR.
Vicki, you have any questions or comments on this one?
Both of them, kind of talk about looking at area or schools that are districts that are close or comparable or whatever to where we're at location-wise. Did they insert whether or not they would look at Minnesota and kind of bring some of that information into the process?
Correct. So one of the things that we're going to ask, we kind of took both proposals and kind of said, this is, ultimately we will have to sit down with them to do the scope, work scope, and then the roadmap. What I'm hoping to do is provide both our supervisors of hourly and then also input from staff. So I have, as an administrative team in HR, we've started to identify a subset of about 7 districts we would like to target. I would like to get that out upon approval that we're moving forward out to our staff and some of the individuals that Mike and Tanya met with last week so that we can get input from our teachers, and then we would send a similar request to the school board that you would put forward, districts that you think would be more in basically who we want to compare ourselves to, who is more likely for a staff member to be recruited to based on proximity and things like that. Okay. And obviously, as an example, right, it's a lot easier to get to Ellsworth or River Falls or Hudson than it is New Richmond. Yeah. Right.
And then I think one of the other kind of interesting things that I saw somewhere was about alternatives to, like, how the structure is organized and set up within our district as far as what those salaries are paid out. Is that was...
Yes, so a really good point, because it's something that came up when we met last week with some of our staff. In 2018, HR, myself, and a series of teachers walked through a professional pay system. Using the TeamWorks frameworks, we had a guiding change. We generated alternative models. There was a tiered and professional pay, and steps and lanes. And at that time, steps and lanes was the one that the licensed staff wanted to stay with. There were some modifications to it, but we met a couple times in the Performing Arts Center, and they all got to have input. I see no reason why it, in fact, Corey was there at that meeting last week. We talked specifically, we have books about alternative or compensation models for educators. We can get those copies out, and I think it would be really healthy to have kind of a process. I think Mike raised a good question, is that that process takes a little longer. And so we made a good faith effort in January. We would like to have something in place for fall. And then obviously with the transition here, it'd be a great time to then have the new superintendent, HR, talk about how do you partner on looking at least alternative pay.
And then was that something that, like, they've got some ideas maybe that they could throw at us too that would maybe make sense?
Yes, and they have a history, really, yes.
Okay, and that Alera is the one?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Helen?
No, I think the only thing is the Alera would be, for me, the fact that they're willing to take that next step and look at that alternative for no more money. That's a good thing. Anywhere we can save funds is great, so.
Katie, do you have any questions on this one?
No questions on this one.
Tanya?
I don't have questions per se, but I did want to point out a couple things. Rick brought up that you, myself, and Rick, I did that in the wrong order grammatically, sorry, met with some of our teachers just for a listening session, and there was a couple things that had been brought up, one of which was that teachers wanted to make sure that they had some kind of voice, so there was getting feedback, and an additional thing was that they wanted to kind of be part of hearing the information and not having everything just kind of, I don't know, decided without them being part of it. And so I did want to point out, I did reread this just to kind of make sure that the key asks or the key interest areas were in here, and it does say that they would deliberate with the client's staff to get a clear understanding of the issues and their expectations for the future. So I felt really good about seeing that in there. I'm assuming that'd be some sort of survey or focus groups and stuff like that, which is great. And then it does bring up looking at creative compensation ways. So like it says that they would look at equity within like steps and lanes, but also creative compensation ways too. So I thought that was really good and hit some of the things that we had talked about. And then lastly, like as a board, this is stuff that we would decide in the future, probably as soon as we kind of agree to which contract we're going to move forward with. But I think it would be best to have some sort of like work session so we can talk about that scope and kind of what that looks like. And again, just a reminder that that is a public session. It's not recorded because it's not really set up that way, but people can come and listen, and especially our staff, which it's not just a licensed staff kind of thing we're looking at, but all of our staff that are interested in that process. It would be a really great place to be able to hear what that scope looks like and how we'll move forward. So no questions. I'm happy this group, it's the less expensive one, but also it really fits in all the needs of what I was looking for in a scope.
Pat?
Yeah, no questions.
Yeah, I think you guys hit on all the points. Alera is kind of the slam dunk out of the two choices, so I don't really have anything else to add either. We can probably entertain a motion.
I move to approve the administration's proposal and contract for Alera to complete the requested job study with wage and benefits benchmarking.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. Thank you. We'll move on to item D. Consider open enrollment programs that are closed 25-26 school year due to DPI guidelines.
And why Sandy is coming up here, I want to just remind the board that We provided you kind of information and discussion last month. We also updated you with regards to what we're coming back for, is that on an annual basis, every district, the 421 within the state of Wisconsin, have to, at a board level, define programs. And historically, Prescott has always looked at special education as whether or not we will be accepting or not accepting students who are external to the Prescott School District. And then due to some of the constraints that we've had, both on staffing and space and classes with high enrollment versus some that have very few, we did entertain a conversation a little bit about general ed with regards to might we want to close some of those sections. So I want to make sure that as we go through, it can be confusing. Sandy and I went back through and we've moved all of the special education conversation first, and that because that is historically what we have done. When we get into the general ed, I want to make sure that we understand is that we're focused specifically on when we would put a pause or a hold on somebody external to the district for the considerations is that when we have class sizes that get too large, it's really hard to automatically hire a new teacher because you're looking at an $80,000 to $85,000 investment, and you would have to have enough enrollment to make sure that you break even. And so obviously internally within the district, if more students come, that's great, and then we have the flexibility of deciding what we do. So when you look at the table, we sent you an update on that, and it really will be the seesaw of that balance, which is really, I think, table 5, or column 5 on that table. So Sandy, you're queued up, and I'll let you take it away.
Great. Thanks, Rick. Is this even on? I don't know if it's on or not. But anyway, members of the board, Superintendent Spikuza, if you could advance to the next slide. So like Dr. Spikuza mentioned, the overview is, as Rick said, non-resident school boards are required to designate, or school boards, designate regular and special education spaces available for the next school year at a January board meeting, and boards must specify their criteria for their open enrollment policy. So that's what we're doing here. Next slide, please. So historically, as Rick said, we've only discussed special ed program and closures. We have not talked about gen ed. Next slide. So our current recommendations for special education, based on the companion document that I've sort of provided over the last few years, we are recommending that 4K special education is closed to non-residents strictly because of the class size, and we are trying to keep our special ed students in 4K as much as possible if they're categorical other than speech at Malone Elementary School, to prevent our related services providers and our special ed teacher from having to go to 5 different sites across town, because right now Melissa Miller generally only stays at Malone Elementary for their 4K. K-5 would be open for special education pending class size thresholds. The exclusion for that would be specialized programming, and by specialized programming, that means any program or service that is contracted outside of the district, so physical therapy. Previous to January 6th, it would have included occupational therapy. If a student comes to us with any service that we currently contract or do not currently have on staff, that would be something that would be exclusionary. The board does not have to take action on that, but under the law that we do not have to take those open enrolled students. We are recommending that middle school remain open, including their specialized programming. So at the K-5, I'm going to go back to number 2. K-5, specialized programming also pertains to those students who are spending more than 50% of their day in special education. So right now at the elementary level, your companion document identifies that at the elementary level, we set a workload recommendation for 9 students. And right now, our workload, so that is an addition of all of the direct service minutes and all of the due process paperwork time, including IEPs and evaluations, for our students spending more than 50% of their time in a special ed classroom. They're currently at a workload of 11.9. So we're going to say closed because they're already over capacity. The middle school specialized program is not over capacity. Again, that workload total, we set a target for 9, and we are currently at a workload of about 6 right now. So middle school, we're recommending remain open for specialized programming and for all other cross-categorical programming. And then we're recommending that the high school is closed for all special ed open enrollment based on staffing needs, and their current workload numbers are above our recommended workload.
And so I'm going to stop here because this is basically the summation of information and discussion from last month. You had the accompanying document. Is there any clarification questions with regards to our administrative proposal tonight for special education by level?
Anybody? Kellen, do you have any? No. Vicki?
No.
Anything over here, Tanya?
No.
No.
Perfect. Part 1 done. All right. So at the December board meeting, we also talked about the potential of coming back this month and either not addressing our general ed class sizes, or B, talking about potentially putting a sort of a cap on non-resident enrollment for certain grade levels. Historically, we've never closed general education enrollment to non-residents, and we have, I'm not sure when these ranges were established by the board, but these are the ranges that have been established by the board sometime in the past. So if we go to the next slide, when we talk about the different grade levels, currently we have in the first column, you see the grade levels K through 5, and you can see what we have for current sections and what we're saying we would have for next year based on numbers. Based on our current numbers and what our current projections are, we would not need to add any staff for next year. That said, if you jump over to...
and before you go further, right? So really important is we went through as an admin team, there's 3 assumptions here. One is based on enrollment and kind of roll up, right, of how students move from 2nd to 3rd, 3rd to 4th, 4K coming into kindergarten, is that we don't see any need right at this point that we would have to add additional staff. Conversely, and even more importantly, we are not asking the board at this time for any reductions. We believe that we have the right number of staff for the right number of students. Obviously, over summer, if things change, we have made adjustments. And I've forgotten good news that there's a card there from 2nd grade, just thanking the board for making the adjustment. And we did a 2-step adjustment, right? We added a 0.6 and then it went to 1.0. So you still have the flexibility based on making changes at that time. So the main thing I wanted to share is that we're not necessarily here to talk about general ed class sizes or staffing. We still have time between now and April for that. What we're trying to say is that these numbers and why we would suggest closing or not would be based on an assumption that we'd have the same number of employees in the general ed K-5. Does that make sense? So that's our assumption, and if true, then we go to count 5.
Yep, and what I'd like to add is, like Rick alluded to, this comes from discussion with both Ms. Dusick and Mr. Kosmalski in terms of where their current class sizes are and their current numbers are, knowing that we have that bubble in second grade that we just added another section to. So you can see that going from second grade to third grade, second grade is in 4 sections this year, but it would go back down to 3 sections next year because we don't have as many first graders rolling up to second grade. But second grade rolling to third grade, we would have to continue to have 4 sections because of the number of students. So what the administrative team did is we sat down, we looked at the previous board recommended kind of ranges and determined, looking at our current class size, where could we be? Like if we say right now we have 21 current students in a class at kindergarten, and we know that next year then 21, 3 sections, that would be what, 63 students. We could potentially have more than 21 students in a class and still operate it effectively. So the recommendation is, let's say that we can go up to 22 students. So if we take that number, 22, and multiply it by 3 sections, then we would say at kindergarten we could accept up to 66 students, including residents and non-residents. Once we hit 22 students average in kindergarten, we are recommending that we close to non-resident students for the grade level. So that would also include if a special ed student comes in and is in second grade. If we go much above that, then we're looking at class sizes that get too big, and we don't have control over people who move into the district and our residents who enroll. And so this also helps maintain posterity and maintain the numbers for staff that we currently have without adding staff, and to help us absorb people who move in throughout the year, which happens. So using that notion, similarly, we looked at kindergarten and first grade. We could feasibly have up to 22 students in a section, so 66 students in kindergarten and first grade. And then in second grade, at 3 sections, we would say that if the enrolled is greater than 72 students or an average class size of 24, we would close to non-residents. At third grade, max class size of 24. Because they're older, our administrative team feels that the teachers could possibly absorb a few more students than what our current recommended ranges are, and kind of what we're doing in some of these situations already. Third grade already has 23 kids in a class, and that's manageable. At fourth grade, we would increase that to 26, and at fifth grade, we would increase that to 26. So right now, we're looking at, yes, all of our grade levels are open, unless the recommendation would be that if the board takes a motion, they would potentially consider closing if we hit that threshold that is in that 5th column.
And kind of this goes back to, I think, Tanya, you had raised the question, is that when we do have decline enrollment, and so when we have decline enrollment, we're losing revenue. And so there's a trade-off. If you cap, you then are turning away additional revenue. So I think there's a couple things, as Sandy said, is currently we're open at every single grade. Second, you could look at whether or not you would want to turn on or off any one of the grades. You don't have to accept the whole slate. You also can decide that we might want to adjust for whatever reason, make the max 21 or 22. And again, these maxes are solely for external, right? And so it's really, you can be silent on it, you can accept all of them, or you can think of them as light switches, turn some on, turn some off.
Let's see, who wants to start here? Any questions? Helen, you got any questions here?
No, not really. We set the board has set the range for a reason and followed that protocol. I'm looking at the numbers. It makes sense. This is all open enrollment. It's not move-ins. So like you said, we can't control move-ins. So it all looks, and we want to protect our teachers and protect the classroom learning. So that makes sense.
Vicki?
I guess knowing that we have numbers set, knowing how this year worked out, and we did have to hire another teacher. We kind of knew that coming in, that we were going to be at max capacity there in second grade. So I think for outside, how many from outside the district do we even really have coming in for regular students, for regular enrollment? Do we have open enrollment for elementary?
We do.
I don't know the exact number for grade level, but as we were talking about it, we were saying how we would need, we would have to open another section to open those kids. We would need 8 kids to offset.
To cover a teacher.
Okay.
That teacher.
Okay.
There's salary benefits, and I don't think that there's a grade.
That doesn't ever happen.
Right, okay, at one grade level. Okay, that's what I was kind of curious about.
Like if you had 2
so.
second graders and 3 third graders and 2 kindergartners, that's almost 8 kids, but it's not at one grade level.
Not at one
so
grade
it's going
level,
to
so it
mess up
doesn't-
whatever grade level has more
Yep.
kids enrolled.
Yep. And as we found, kindergarten, we ended up with a lot more of them showing up and popping up this summer that were in our community, so.
That happens a lot.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I don't want to overcrowd people who have moved to Prescott and want to live here, and their kids, they want them in this district. So I guess, we've got the numbers set, and if we do have some wiggle room, if it is just one more in a grade, if we have that ability to kind of make that wiggle room as the year goes on per section or something like that, then this looks good to me.
Katie, anything on this one? Grade sizes, Pat?
No questions. I don't think, just me personally at this time, I want to add a maximum number of class. I'm going to be, to accept where I'm going to be personally is just to accept the recommendation by administration.
That leaves me. So I was looking at our old recommendation, which was slightly on there. First of all, I want to thank you because you guys reworked this a little bit, and originally there were going to be some sections closing, and so I think this is a good rework. I was looking back, it's like 2 slides ago if you want to go there, but you can see kind of our current recommendations, and so really I'm taking it as that last column, we should really consider that being our new recommendations, that you guys did some work, you looked, and for people that are listening, right, it's not just about, oh, this is how many kids we can handle, you're talking space as well and all the other things that go into it, so it's like square footage and, there's more to it than just how many kids can you fit into a room. And so I'm hearing the recommendation is that we could adjust this, and I think it was kindergarten, first and second grade, so it would go to 22, 22 and 24, and that would be our new board recommendations. And then the rest, I want to say, yeah, we're the same, aligned with what we currently have. And so we were wanting to do this. I think you guys did all the hard work for us, and I'm happy to accept these recommendations as a board. And then I just want to, just a couple things, because I want people in the community that are hearing this understand what we're talking about on this slide here is right now we're open for open enrollment, unless there's special education kind of considerations, for this school year. And then next year, we would wait to actually formally choose to close those, right? I mean, are we able to close right now for next year, or do we have to wait?
No, that's actually the
Perfect.
open enrollment begins February 1st.
Okay. Yep.
So exactly when you make this, then we start to be able to.
Perfect.
But there are
Accept.
timelines for when we have to notify families
Okay.
in writing whether or not their enrollment has been accepted. So this would then inform us, if we already know that we have 26 kids enrolled, and they're enrolled for next year in fourth grade projected, then we would know that in June, when we notify families whether or not they were accepted through the open enrollment process, that non-residents would likely not be accepted because we are already at our average class size of 26.
And if something adjusts, let's say we lose a couple kids in fourth grade.
Yeah, then
we
we'd be
can
open.
we can readjust. Okay, perfect. And then my last thing, and I think I understand it, but we do have kids that are open enrolled right now, families within our district. They would be able to keep their enrollment. Like, we're not saying, oh, you can't stay here next
Exactly.
year. They're already built within our numbers, so that open enrollment is not what we're talking about. We're talking about in addition to new ones, right?
They remain in our district, they're counted in our numbers, and we move forward in that manner. And then with that caveat, I just want to also point out that on the front page of the companion document, we also talk about pupils of siblings who have applied under the open enrollment policy and who are already attending our district. Our school board policy does give preference to siblings, but it does not guarantee that if you enroll here and you've been here, that your brother now can come automatically. These guidelines would still pertain.
Okay, perfect. And I just want to, that's what I was hoping, that's what I figured, and so everybody out there understands that if you're in our district, you're in our district, you're ours, we care for you, you're here. We're really just talking about future enrollment, so thank
And
you.
it's fluid, right?
Yeah.
It's fluid throughout the year, so if, like you said, if we have somebody move out and it drops us below that total of 104 in fourth grade, now we're at 99, well, then we have room for 6 kids, 7 kids to possibly enroll.
I got to, Tanya brought up a good point about current open enrollees, right? So if we, if the district gets a bunch of move-ins, right, and they become resident, and we go beyond what we've approved today, what are we saying to those current and open enrollees?
We're saying that we have held space for that to happen without impacting the quality of education.
Yeah. So basically, once they're enrolled, they then become basically.
We're treating them
once enrolled, you're with us until you decide to leave.
Yep. Thanks.
Looks good.
Yeah, I think my questions are answered, Sandy. This is great. Maybe on that slide, on that previous slide, Rick, just for historical purposes, this was, I think, put in place around 2010 when I was first on the board after the SAGE program. I don't know if anybody remembers the word SAGE. But the idea was to try to keep the class sizes low, right? One concern I have is so the class sizes here the maximums are lower than what the projected, or than what we're recommending now. I know there's a reason for that, because we want to try to squeeze as many as we can into a classroom without impacting I mean, I'm mostly concerned with impacting education. I'd rather hire a teacher if we have to.
And I think what the administrative team
an aide.
is realizing is over the course of these 14 years that it is reasonable and not detrimental to the quality of education to actually have 22 kids in a class at KN1 and 24 kids in a class at 2 and 3, and it's not going to be that impactful. Now, there's a big difference between 24 and 18, but if you're looking at 21 versus 24, probably not a huge impact.
And I would say like the way we teach is a lot different over the last 14, 15 years, right? So we have more interventionists, we have more pull-out, I mean, there's more things and more fluidity, special ed, more things happening that you don't always have that just group of students right in that same space with you.
Right.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, I want to just point it out that anytime we get in a situation where we feel like the class sizes are getting too big, I think the board should support adding staff where needed, if possible.
Yep.
And that should always be one of our top priorities, so. Yeah.
And I honestly think that with class sizes that are, reasonable, I don't think anybody would disagree on the admin team. If we're looking at adding staff, it should be in the area of intervention.
Yeah, great. Okay, this is great. I don't really have any changes I want to make either, so I think I'm good with it. Thanks, Sandy.
Yeah.
Anybody else have anything else before we take a motion? Are we good? Okay.
I move to approve open enrollment programs that are closed for the 25-26 academic year as proposed in the workload document shared tonight.
I'll second.
But that was only if you were going to do special education.
Okay,
So if you are going to do the max, then we do also have to add the alternative motion.
Can we approve this one motion and then approve the next, or do you want us to combine?
It should be one.
Dang, I don't know why I chose this one to read. Okay. Okay. To add any
Doesn't
max.
say special ed only.
Yeah, we should
No.
make sure proposed as the special education workload.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so I'm going to read the top one and then include the other one, right? Okay, my computer's changing now. Okay, I move to approve open enrollment programs that are closed for the 25-26 academic school year as proposed in the special education workload document shared tonight. And add to classrooms, kindergarten, first grade, and second grade, the new board recommendation maximum as proposed tonight. Does that work?
I think you have to specifically say that you would be closed to non-residents if the average class size max in kindergarten is 66.
Nope.
No, if the average class size max is 22, or the grade level max is 66.
Nope, only, remember we went through, because if we add a section, right, we're only focused on.
You have to specify each grade level and.
Yeah. So it's the closed would be, I would just say, I would reference the table and the slide that if the general ed class size average max as designated on this table.
Okay.
And
I think it is now, right?
yeah, I would reference the table that was presented and that it's by grades kindergarten through fifth grade. And then we can fill in the numbers when we post it on the web.
Okay, let me try that again. I move to approve open enrollment programs that are closed for the 25-26 academic year as proposed in the special ed workload document and shared tonight, slides 2, and the general ed slide 13 class size maximum. By grade, with the increase in grades K1 and 2 as proposed. Right? I'm saying I'm closing special ed, I'm closing the general ed based on this, and we're increasing class size recommendations in those three. I think I did I?
Is it external?
I would separate, just do the open enrollment thing and then do the board recommendation for class sizes separate. So two separate things.
No.
they're not.
We're confusing the issue again.
Yeah.
So what we have to do is communicate to DPI and to the community on any program or general ed class that's closed. So we have to have one motion. It is, we are closing specific special education programs, which were, let me just go back.
Make sure it's the right slide.
From slide 2, right? That's the slide 2.
Slide 2 and slide 13.
Yeah, so it's these programs,
Which I said.
right? So it's 4K, special ed, and high school special ed are closed, along with specialized programs. Is that right, Sandy, for K-5 and middle school?
It's exactly as written.
Okay, so I would just say we are accepting the administration recommendations. This is slide 2, right? And then slide 13, which column 5 specifies as the...
Which I said both of those things.
Yep,
So are we good?
I just don't think we have to add that we're increasing the maximum
Yes.
class. I would just let the slide speak for itself.
Okay, I'm going to do this again. Everybody watching at home is probably laughing. Okay, I move to approve open enrollment programs that are closed for the 25-26 academic year as proposed in the special ed workload document shared tonight, slide 2, and general ed slide 13. Class size maximums by grade level as proposed for external open enrolled residents.
That sounds great.
Okay.
I think that's our motion.
I will second that.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That one finally carries. Thank you.
It's a mouthful, it's a
Yeah,
lot,
it is.
yeah.
Good job. All right, item E, consider approval for the Prescott Public School academic calendar, Michael's favorite topic.
Hoorah, rah.
But he knocked it out of the park.
I thought, great.
All right, last month I came to the school board. The unique thing about next year's calendar is that it's not unique at all. It's very much like this year's calendar. The real only decisions were the 2 days, the 2 weeks at the winter break, and if we wanted to look at potentially having school previous to the winter recess. Again, surveys from last year showed like 80% of staff would like the full 2-week break. Now that we've lived that, we've seen a lot of positive feedback from staff as well. Not all staff, there are things that, you know, it is difficult to get back into routines, and we saw that at the elementary levels in particularly, but the 2-week, 3 weekends, we heard a lot of positive about that. So really the options that we really looked at, and again, part of this is with our PLC leaders, we do, you guys asked me to do an input survey to our staff, to communicate with Chris McGee at St. Joe's and look at the calendar together. And really what we were looking at in the 2 different options were that long stretch between mid-January to March. February is the shortest yet longest month of the calendar year. So really the question was, are we going to take the President's Day off and then push back the end of the calendar by 1 day? Ricky, go to the next slide. We sent out an input survey to all of our staff, asked for them to respond. 106 responded. You can see the demographics there, district-wide people by the buildings. We had good representation. Classroom teachers, as you can see, made up about 58% of who responded. And of those responded, 10% had no preference on do we push that 1 day or not. But you can see of the ones that had a preference, overwhelmingly, like 80% of the ones that had a preference wanted President's Day off in the calendar and push the end of the calendar back just that 1 more day. So recommendation that we have for the board, again, it's really a board decision though, is that we would then follow the input of the staff and take that day off. The red squares that you see on here are new this year. Those are just indicating for 4K families, whenever we have a Monday off, typically for professional development, this would be a Monday off because we're taking the day off. If we approve this calendar, that just means that 4K is on those Fridays. And that's what that signifies.
Okay.
All right, Pat, any questions?
No questions.
Tanya?
No questions.
Vicky?
No questions.
Helen?
No.
Great
Katie.
job.
No questions.
Not gonna, well,
Not going to be
you
here.
never know. All right, no, it looks good. Thanks for doing the extra legwork, Michael. I think we're good. So we can take a motion.
I move to approve the Prescott Public School academic calendar for the 2025 through 26 academic year as presented, option 2.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. And last item on the business? No? Yeah, I think so. Is item F, 10-year buildings and grounds plan, phase 1 and Fund 46 capital projects.
Is it the last?
Come on up, Mike.
What do you mean? We have, like, we're halfway.
Wait, no, I missed a page. Sorry. I'm with you.
Like we're done? What?
Get this moving faster.
And as we continue to evolve, I wanted to just, you saw some pictures during the loop that we have at the beginning. Mike has been obviously tirelessly partnering with me from overseeing the building of this high school, the infrastructure over the last 2 summers and changing grade configuration. So tip of a hat to everything that Mike has done. There were some photos up there. He can share with you some of the work that we've done, but also saved $50,000 based on the school board's decision last month to upgrade the middle school lockers, but how we went about it. I wanted to thank Mike for that. This is different than what we've done before. This is going to be multiple phases. It is related to Fund 46. Fund 46 is a trust fund. It's for capital projects only, and to date, when we started it, it was always about brick and mortar. It was facilities. But capital is basically anything that's $5,000 or more, and it covers many things. So Mike is going to lead this off. When we use or tap Fund 46, always has to be approved by the board, but you cannot spend any money on a project unless it's been part of your 10-year plan. So Mike's coming back with you to give you an update on that and a new format. But then we're going to follow up in phase 2, and we want to be able to have PCR and our athletics, meaning our grounds. When we think about Dexter, Varsity Field, and any upgrades, they are going to be expensive. And so Matt Smith will be coming to you. As we work with Rick Montreal and Heather Christensen, we have an aging bus fleet, and we also need to be able to come back to you to say what's the right appropriate number of buses and how that plays out both for just busing students to and from school, but also extracurricular. Technology is a cornerstone of how we deliver instruction today. It's expensive, and so we'll be talking with Andy Holland about how we cycle not just computers, but it's our projectors, it's our boards, and it's our sound. And then coming back to you with the Performing Arts Center. There's a lot of money in those lights, soundboards, and anything as that ages. We're coming up on 10 years. We need to be able to have that on this long-range plan. Obviously, Mike will always be the point person, but we're going to start including those other areas. So this is to get the ball rolling, and so I'll turn it over to Mike. He gave you how he does a worksheet, but then also how he's listing, and there's a tab at the bottom that summarizes and then by school. So, Mike?
Yeah, so just kind of briefly, first of all, that worksheet y'all received was been updated with all the work from the referendum and stuff that's on there. And what the worksheet does, that has everything that has like a life expectancy as we do annual inspections, whatever, then that will get moved onto the long-range plan. So the high school will be fine.
Okay.
We want to just tab on the high school one. So there's some things already that we kind of moved in there from the worksheet. Adding an IWAR station, that's kind of a safety thing. But we start looking at domestic hot water heaters as an example. The life expectancy of them in a commercial setting is like 15 years. So school opened in 2026, so we're kind of getting in that range. So that's all stuff will get moved from the worksheet onto our long-range plan. Is once it gets in under that 10-year mark, or close to it, or we feel that it's wearing out quicker, then we're going to move it on to this long-range plan so we can start looking at this and get some numbers that, okay, down the road, whether it be 5, 10 years, this is what we're going to have to deal with. And that's why we move this out. There's going to be tabs for the parking lots, because we know they're expensive. We did some parking lots on the referendum, but roofs. So, because all of a sudden, 10, 20 years goes by pretty quick, and then all of a sudden, these are big ticket items that we need to look at. Just even putting the technology in, you start buying, I don't know, a few hundred laptops and computers and all that, well, it adds up pretty quick. So that way we can have it all on one sheet. And once it's on this page and we decide, okay, we feel, who's ever working on it, if it's going to be buildings and grounds, that would be me. If it's PAC or technology, then we said, okay, this is what we got to start. Put it on the project summary page that this is where we're going to want to earmark some money for to take care of these projects. So we can go back to all the way over to the summary project. Yeah, project summaries. So this is where, once it gets to this part, this is when we really want to start taking it, where it'd be 1 to 3 years out. We did leave the referendum stuff on here. We're winding that up. I just want to have a placeholder for that, what we're dealing with, so we kind of keep some dollar amounts out there. We know what we have for referendum dollars. We got to finalize what's left there and what we want to do on that project. But in our Fund 46 budget or regular maintenance budget, that's where the projects down below there, you can see we're looking at replacing some lights in the wrestling room, looking at replacing the rubber flooring. We already talked about that. But we're talking about the aging bus garage. Need to update some. We have done some LED lighting up there. We want to do LED lighting in the shop. Look at the electrical service. We did update a lot in our school buildings already, but that's electric panel up there should be updated for the amount of load they have. We've seen the lockers. That's coming along. That should be wrapped up. There's some specialty metals that's got to be bent to finish them off. They're coming right along. Project looking at evaluating. We got some fire doors at 125 intermediate school that should be replaced. Where we come in the doors, we have these recessed mats that collect a bunch of dirt and water. They're failing. And what we did at the elementary, we did that a few years ago, we removed them and we put walk-off carpet in, very similar to what you have in the high school here. So we're looking at to do that. Let's see, IWAR station. Let's see, what do we got? Just mulch, because it's the dollar amount to replace a bunch of mulch at the playgrounds on there. So. And I just put some future projects coming up. And we'll be adding that as we go through, evaluating and inspecting stuff throughout the school year, looking at the long-range plan, life expectancy of things. That's when we'll get it added onto this page as we go. So. I don't know if you have any questions.
Pat, do you have any questions for Mike here?
Maybe more of a, so we're I'm just looking back at what we're trying to approve today, phase one. So, I mean, this is good. This is all great. What's phase one? I mean, what are we approving? We're approving, because some of this stuff is still, right, it's still in draft, right? We don't have.
Yeah, so what you'd be approving is that the phase one would just be the brick and mortar things that Mike oversees that are on the tabs right now with regards to the buildings.
Of which worksheet, though?
So it'd be the project summary.
The project summary.
And
The 2024 one.
Yeah,
there.
because that's,
Okay.
the project summary we're looking at, especially the one that's in the 2025. What you see there's probably like $7,500,000 if we did all those projects there. That's what we're looking at to get approved to start moving forward, getting some bids and stuff. I have some rough estimates there, so.
Yeah.
Can you just scroll up just a little bit?
Okay, so, all right.
So, yeah, I think it's a good point to call this out. So the referendum, we got the approved referendum projects and the pending, that's all covered with referendum dollars, obviously. So the projects section from line 20 on down is the stuff you want to get done next.
From there on,
From there on, and that's going to come from Fund 46.
From Fund 46.
Which is
Okay.
roughly $100,000 or so.
Correct.
It'd be great, just I think in the future, to see like a subtotal line, maybe in column B. And then I should remember it from looking at the financials, but, you know, where are we at with our current balance of that fund?
We're about $880,000.
Okay.
By the end of the year, based on interest and allocations that were part of the budget, we're targeting that by June 30th, you'll have $1 million
Okay.
in Fund 46.
And remind me how much of that is able to be liquid?
Yeah, currently, about 75% of it is in fluid cash.
Okay.
I believe, I have to check with Kara, you approved for us not to renew in a CD, and it went into a high-yield savings account. And then I think we have $250,000 plus or minus in a CD that's locked up for, I think, one more year.
Okay, all right. And so, and I know you already said this, you guys, but so I'm just catching up. So, a capital project, Fund 46, right now we're saying, you know, above the $5,000 threshold is what we're kind of putting on the Fund 46 list, and this is where you'll be tracking those then. And that differentiates our regular maintenance from capital projects, correct? That's what you guys said, and I said that right?
Yeah, I mean, we have the maintenance and then we also have the capital, so.
Yep.
I mean, it could be either. It could be under $5,000 if it's
Right.
maintenance stuff. It's just.
Under five.
And capital just also includes 5,000 or over.
It has to be over 5,000, yeah.
Because like one thing's 3,000, for example, which is fine because it's maintenance.
Right, I guess I'm trying to get to, we're using that threshold to differentiate between your normal annual maintenance budget, though, and what we're earmarking for Fund 46. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I don't have any questions beyond that, Mike.
Okay. Tanya?
Well, Mike, I've been with you for 10 years, which we already said, but I've seen a lot of different versions of kind of that long-term planning project from, I feel like at one point you had most things just like written down even, and to, like I remember spreadsheets and like scratch notes on it, and so I really, I like this. I think this is
Yeah,
great.
We've had a few versions.
Yeah, yeah. And from a project management standpoint, I assume like people like, for example, Mr. Smith out here, if he wants to add something to this, he kind of like, it goes through you for essentially, it gets added on. And then once it's on there, it will kind of stay on there because of, even if you do it, I assume you're going to put, here's when we need to redo it, or we can take it off if it's a one-time thing. Okay. Yeah, I think it's great. It's actually, and I know I can look at this and see that it's not all the way filled in. It's a work in progress right now too.
This always will be a work.
Yeah.
Right,
It's just
Yeah.
as things get replaced, repaired, some things we
removed
might
in the net.
find that will
Yeah.
fail earlier and we need to move it up on the scale.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
very similar to other long-range page did. But I think it's easier to track it on
Yeah.
this type of a spreadsheet
Yeah.
instead of a doc. You know.
And then there's other people, like I brought up Mr. Smith, for example, that have some responsibility with like the grounds maybe and sports stuff, and then other people with the building. So it's a little bit of a nice way to separate kind of who else has eyes on this. But it looks great. Approving that sounds great. I'm really proud of the fact that we have that much money saved up for this kind of stuff, that we can do this stuff without having, in the past, before Dr. Spacuzza, right, we didn't have Fund 46, so we didn't have a savings for this.
Right, we did not.
So we just you had to come and ask, can we fit this in the budget? It's a little for the regular maintenance, and so it's great, and I would imagine gives you some peace of mind too, knowing that we do have money set aside that we're working for these purposes. So, yeah, it's great. Thank you.
And what I did is went back to Mike's worksheet tool.
Yeah.
So this is what he was kind of mentioning, I just hadn't opened it, but he talks about how he has the year it was installed, what the life expectancy is, and that's where he's working with every custodian that's a lead, he's working with the admin and the supervisors, and then when it's getting to a point where it's going to be a budget hit, he's moving it over to that Fund 46 worksheet. So we have kind of this really granular level, and you can see it's specific to just the sites, and then we transition into something that would be approved by you, that it's legitimate, it is something that's timely, and we're going to start making plans for tapping into anything that exceeds the budget.
So, sorry, I'm going to go out of turn. What's our plan, and it's probably after we get all the summer projects done and you got a chance to breathe, but, so that worksheet that Rick just had open, the stuff that's in blue, air handler 6, expected year replacement 2030, right? So what's the next phase of putting in estimated costs in there, and then being able for us to evaluate that against anticipated maintenance budget and then Fund 46 balances?
Yeah, so when something gets on that worksheet, so when it gets like within a 10-year or maybe we feel that, you know what, even though the life expectancy is that, but we feel that the maintenance and structure that we have, that piece of equipment might last longer. So that's when we'll make the value, when we'll move it over to the long-range plan. Trying to get that stuff moved over there within, something, so we're looking at it, 5-10 years out, that it's there, that we can start looking at it, it's okay.
And I think just as we're able to even look out to that 10 years though, and I think every year, right, when we build a budget, the board, we have to evaluate, are we gonna feed Fund 46 or are we not? And we'll be able to, and I know it's a forecast, right? It's a dart throw, but it's something. We'll be able to look out 10 years and say, we've got cost expectancies of X and our Fund 46 is anticipated to be Y. Are we okay, or do we need to fill in the gaps, or do we need to look at something different? So I think as time allows, maybe to move, I don't know if that's phase 2, or that'd be great, maybe, as we get further into this year. I think that'll be important for me as we build upon vision 2035? I got it right, yeah. So.
I think like what you're saying, Pat, is if we know we got some big expenses coming up, because we can project it 8 years out, we might want to put an extra $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 away to build up to that, so, yeah.
So that's where that subtotal line that you had talked about, Pat, would be nice to have for not only what's in Fund 46 currently,
but also the other worksheet,
but also what the projected costs could be. Okay.
Right.
Total projected costs. Okay.
And it'll take some time to put that stuff together, and it might not be right. It'll probably be wrong, but it's something.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I think this looks great. I like the idea of having that. You've got your input worksheet, basically. You know what you've got to fix, what the timelines are on it. If someone brings something to you, like Mr. Smith knows that we've got, in 2 years, we got to take care of this. He can let you know and then look at it and put it forward as it needs to come forward. So, very good.
Helen?
Yeah, I don't really have much to say. Having it all, it looks like a good working document, and having it all in one spot and being able to reference it is great, and then being able to forecast what we need. I like spreadsheets, so we're good.
Yeah, Mike, it looks good. The only question I had was really kind of related to Fund 46, and are we kind of trying to target an amount on a yearly basis? I know it depends on what we have to fix, but we're trying to live within our means too, right? So like, how much are we thinking we're going to need to, do we have a benchmark of how much we want to try to allocate every year on projects that would come from Fund 46, and how's that planned of what our interest gain is every year? And because I know we're trying to basically, we're making a lot of money on interest, and that sometimes can pay for a lot of this stuff if we can live within that, right? And that's kind of, so do you understand my line of questioning, Rick?
100%. Yeah, I think that's where Kara, Mike, and I have to be able to come back. I think right now what we have is we're shifting to this model. Mike, remind me, how many pages was the Google Doc when you first started?
When we first started, the time we first listed everything, it was like 12 pages.
Of just lists of things. So it's winnowed down. But I think everything that you all have shared is, if there's a big project 2 years out or 5 years out, we have to be able to know that we're going to need that money because it will exceed our budget. The way that Kara and I are currently looking at it is, it's kind of, you will be able to put more money away this year and next year, but you're going to, because other costs are going to rise, primarily salaries and our fixed costs, you'll have fewer dollars to put away in the future. And so
save now.
Yeah, so our goal is we're going to save big early, and then as we build the next budget, to, I think your questions would be, on an annual basis, I think you could start to set up guidelines, is that Mike would be able, and this is just one option, would be that you can spend up to the interest earned the previous year, so that you're not touching principal, and that you're only doing interest. That's just a suggestion, and that actually is one of the things that we were able to do when you gave permission for the high school here. We moved some additional lights to LED, and all we did is tapped interest that came in. So I think you can kind of set up ground rules, but also as markets change, right now we can get as equal interest on high yield compared to CDs. 4 years ago, you had to be in CDs to get the best interest. So I think you don't want to be locked up that 75% is, you can't touch it, and then a big project comes by, but you don't want to miss out on interest. So it's all those combinations that I think we will, between now and June, be coming back to you to start to figure out what is a good model to kind of put in place.
And I think for all those reasons, if that other worksheet, if we can just start filling in the estimated replacement value, that's going to give us the data we need to analyze all that fun stuff.
Excellent. All right. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
We can, we're good. We need to make a motion here to just approve the plan. Phase 1.
Oh, where are we even? I move to approve Phase 1 of the 10-year buildings and grounds plan.
I'll second.
We have a motion, a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That one carries. Item G, consider the administration proposal for bus driver pay.
Yes, so I really wanted to thank Rick Montreal and Heather. As we mentioned, it's one of the more challenging methods of how we pay our drivers, and it's based on seniority, it's based on length of route, it is based on base pay, and how long they drive. What we were able to do, we initially thought we would do a stipend and try to make it equitable to how the other hourly individuals were compensated. When Rick and Heather started to work that out mathematically, they came back to payroll and to finance, and the best proposal they had was every bus driver, based on the work that they do, and this is another thing, based on the age and how our bus drivers work. Some don't work in the spring, and so it's all different. So they came back and they worked with making sure that the drivers were aware, but because there is a base pay rate, and they had received the 2.5 raise like all other staff, is that they are requesting that we just bump the base rate route by an additional 1.5, which would give them the 4% that's equitable to everybody else. If you approve that tonight, it would hit the January 30th payroll, and that would meet this, it would fall at the same time as everybody else getting their increase.
All right, Helen, did you have any questions on this one?
No, I think that raising them to that 4% with that 1.5 makes sense, and then getting it executed so we can get it on there, so we can get to funds as soon as possible makes sense. So no, I don't have any questions.
All right, Vicki?
No questions.
Tanya?
No questions. I'm happy that this fits and aligns with what we're doing for others as well as timing too, so that's great.
Pat?
My only question, Mr. Montreal, is here, is this, because I know this is complicated, right, and it's different for everybody, is this fairly easily explainable to everybody? Will it make sense to the drivers?
I'll let Rick explain it.
Okay.
Because I'm still trying to figure that out myself.
Okay, all right.
It's been in place since Tim put it in place. What I've heard is that it was benefiting the drivers. I, again, can't quite figure that out exactly how. I had said to Heather, maybe we should look at the hourly idea of just kind of doing what a lot of other people do. But she advocated, as Tim had advocated, that they like this system. So that's kind of what we're going with.
And I guess my only question is, we can approve anything we want to, but if the people getting it don't understand it, and so just, if we're not comfortable with how we're going to explain it.
No, and I think the drivers understand it.
No, I guess that was my question.
Yeah.
Can it be explained to the people getting the 1.5 base?
Or has it been?
I think what Rick is saying is it's unexplainable, but they get it.
Yeah, I get it.
That was a conversation we did have. Because I just thought it would be simplified if we went to hourly. You know, even if you have a longer rate or more miles, you get paid because you're working longer. But there was always just a good rebuttal to that, so I just went with it because that's what the
And in all fairness, we also used that, they are part of the Alera study.
Yeah.
And so we hope that Alera could come back and say, we understand this is how you do it. Here are some other options that you might want to consider. And I think it's going to end up very similar to our teachers and licensed staff, is that in 2018, they felt more comfortable sustaining the steps and lanes because they were comfortable with it and understood it. I think now there is an interest to at least revisit and come back and see, have they evolved and want something different. I think for our bus drivers right now is it's a comfortable shoe, it fits, and it really does give them an equitable 4% increase like everybody else. It's just the algorithm for it is a little bit more challenging, but they get it and they trust it more than if we just went to an hourly or stipend.
Okay, fair enough. Thanks.
Okay.
All right. Someone want to make a motion?
I move to approve the proposal for bus driver pay increase effective with January 30th, 2025 paychecks.
I'll second.
That's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That one carries. We're on item H, hourly rate increase for curriculum rating.
I hope this is one of the quickest ones we can have tonight. My omission, last month, we talked a lot about different adjustments that we were making for hourly and for staff. During our work session in December, we had explained that our staff get curriculum writing hours. There's a whole process of how they select it. Anybody that's getting a new course is allowed X number of hours. That rate has not changed in the 10 years that I've been here. The $30 an hour was based on kind of what an average salary is and then what the hourly rate is. Administration and finance would like to recommend that we move all curriculum writing hours beginning as of January 1st from $20 to $30 an hour.
Any questions on this one, board? Anybody?
I thought we already approved this, too.
We didn't, we talked about it at
Talked about
the
it.
work session.
Yep.
Wasn't
We
in
just
any of the
didn't
motions.
explicitly state it,
Yep.
and so we wanted to make sure that it was, documented and clear.
Okay. Anybody else have any comments or questions? We good? Can take a motion.
I move to approve increasing the hourly rate for curriculum writing from $20 to $30 per hour.
I second that.
All right, then we have a motion, a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. Item
Vicky.
H, consider transfer of funds for tech.
Vicky and Helen, yeah.
Yeah, Vicky was moved and Helen second, right?
Got one.
Firewall renewal.
Yeah, this one is just a technicality with regards to, we built a budget and then we received funds based on the supported operating levy. So we have more money coming in, and we now have a cost that was not initially on our radar, and that is a $23,000 cost for technology for the firewall renewal. It's a big hit, but we put all of the referendum dollars into one account, and so you can see 10E 800, and that means Fund 10, 800 is district-wide, but anytime you move money across two-digit functions, it takes board approval. So all we're saying is the added 1.2 went into the large area in Fund 10, but in order to earmark it specifically to technology to pay for this cost of a firewall that's essential, it does take board approval.
Pat?
No, understand that. I mean, maybe similar to Mike's stuff, how are we tracking these things in the future and just making sure that we're not surprised by them and that we're, to the best of our ability, anticipating costs. These are capital investments.
No, and actually, and that's, if you remember, just going back to Mike, you saw the tabs, and that's why we're going to phase 2, is that we need to have grounds, technology, our fleet all tied in there.
So I did see that for technology, and this would be, this would be an example of what would belong under. Okay.
Yep.
No other questions?
Tanya?
No questions.
Vicky?
No questions.
Helen?
No questions.
Katie?
No questions.
Rick, I'm sorry, I do have a question here. So is this 23, obviously we need it, so we're gonna approve something here, but is it coming from the referendum dollars that were approved from their voters? Is that where
It's
we're pulling from?
Yeah, so we're pulling it from, because it's operations, right?
Okay.
So it's what we need to be able to function. And the initial budget that we built for technology
Didn't include it.
doesn't include a $23,000 hit. So either they go over, and we would like to basically, it's cleaner for us to be able to track what the true costs are for technology, and then to Pat's point, that it's then documented so that it's part of, it's on the radar and it doesn't get dropped off.
So this could potentially be Fund 46 dollars that we could spend on this, though? Is that
I
true
would
or
have
no?
to clarify that. Yeah, because really, I mean, it's in the grand scheme of things, it's Fund $10, and it has to be covered. We're moving it out of the bucket where all of the money came and slicing off $23,000 and put it into technology.
And, I mean, we're not, it's referendum dollars that we, I know it's part of the referendum dollars was for curriculum and what do we call it?
And just overall operations.
Operations. So I mean, it's well within the boundaries of that. I'm just wondering if there's a different way to pay for it and use the referendum dollars for something else, but. All right. I mean, we need it, so we'll approve it, I think, here, but I'd be curious to know if Fund 46 is something that we can leverage for it in the future.
Well, you can follow up on that.
Okay. Anybody want to make a motion here?
I move to approve transferring $23,000 from, so I got to read it all?
No.
Oh, yeah.
From the account presented to the technology budget for the firewall security renewal.
I'll second.
reluctantly. We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? That one carries. All right, we're gonna move to item I, superintendent search firm contract.
And I'm really going to pass the baton to Mike. You guys had 2 vendors that presented to you, I think it was last week, and I think the goal for you tonight is to be able to review and have a discussion with regards to the 2 proposals that you have and make a selection so that you can get out of the gate fast.
Yeah, so just to back up a second, I'm going to wing it here. I was not really prepared for this, but I should have been. When we got notice of Rick's retirement, we moved pretty quickly to try to start looking into hiring a search firm for the superintendent search process. That's how we acquired Rick 10 years ago. It worked out really well. And as the board, we decided that that's what we wanted to do this time around too. Having a search firm is a great process to have for school boards to find quality superintendents, a candidate pool. So fast forward a little bit, last week we interviewed several search firms. We picked 2 of them. One that was we hired 10 years ago, School Exec Connect, and then another one, HYA. We did look at several other ones. We looked at WASB, we looked at a couple other ones. We landed on HYA and School Exec Connect. They have solid credentials within the area. They're very well reputable across Minnesota, Wisconsin, and really other states in the area, and maybe even a little bit more nationwide. Some of them do, or both of these do. I know we're considering, I think the consideration here is HYA, and the HYA stands for Hazard, Young, and yeah. Say that again?
It's right here.
Yeah, Hazard, Young, and Attia Associates. Thank you. I'm sorry I didn't have it. That doesn't roll off the tongue. So that during the interview, they provided, and really both firms are great. I mean, we had School Exec Connect. We interviewed them as well, and we were very pleased with their work 10 years ago. And ironically, it was the same guy that presented last Wednesday that we worked with during the process 10 years ago. So that also a very reputable firm. Both offer solid proposals. HYA, I felt the board, and you guys can jump in here, but HYA was wanted out. They came really well prepared. They had a great timeline for us. I don't know if we need to go through the timeline. I kind of had it up. You actually brought it up, but they proposed a timeline, and the goal is to really get the process going now, to get the quality search going as quickly as we can. Now is the right time to be looking for superintendents to replace positions. So we hope to follow a timeline that will eventually wrap up in early April is the goal, to have a superintendent approved and hired sometime in early April. I'll skip through all the rest of the milestones that they have on the sheet here, but really it's from now, hopefully by early April, we can announce a new superintendent in Prescott. I'll stop there. I'm going to look to you guys. Anything I missed, or do you want to add anything?
I think the only thing that's worth adding is both firms had a similar process, and part of our process in working with them is going to be establishing some focus groups, getting feedback from administration, staff, the community. Just in general, that is part of the process, and that takes some time, and to meet these timelines that we're wanting to achieve, we need to get moving quick. So.
Yeah, and maybe I'll just piggyback on that. Having been a part of this process before, it's intense. having HYA or School Exec Connect help us with the search, and then there's a very intense process of 2 rounds of interviews. There's going to be community engagement. There will be staff engagement. There will be engagement from many different stakeholders to build not only just like the profile for the superintendent, but also as part of the process for the interviews as well. So we're very pleased with how the process and basically the intricacies of what the process will do for us. Kind of, some of it insulates us as well, I think, for lack of a better word, but I think it's the process hopefully will work itself out, and we get the goal is to get a superintendent in the district that's going to want to be here for a long time. I mean, ideally it'd be great to have another superintendent for 10 years. And we're 3 for 3 on that with the last 3 superintendents now. So I think it'd be great. Hopefully we can strike gold here as well and try to hire another superintendent that wants to be here for a long time. Tanya, did you have anything you want to add?
No, I really liked HYA. Just overall, this is the one that I would go for. They like you said, everything was really well presented. Their timeline was perfect. They also were really attentive to answering our questions and really Courtney's questions, even throughout just kind of getting this lined up. And I think that was an important factor for me. I would say for people wondering why do we need to hire someone to help us hire someone, and it's just the country in general just has a superintendent shortage right now. Since the pandemic, there's been more and more superintendents leaving. There's been more and more superintendents leaving, and it's not easy to hire a really well-qualified superintendent to lead a district anymore. That was one of the questions we asked each of the firms was, how many applicants would you expect? And they said roughly, it was almost 50% less than we would have had 10 years ago even apply, and that's with recruitment and stuff like that. So this is a really important piece that we want to have them assist with. It leads our whole entire district, so, yep.
Vicki?
I don't have anything else really to add. The gentleman that we interviewed, I think his name was Mike. He answered every question that we had for him, that we threw at him. He's got it all, has it all spelled out really nice, and I think what really was exciting was that he's ready to go. Like, they're ready to jump into this. They think that for us, especially, we're going to be one of the early ones that he's hoping that we'll be able to attract some really, really good candidates, because we're getting this out and getting this started right away here after the first of the year. So I think that's a benefit to us, that get this going right away, and that they are excited and ready to get started immediately. So,
Helen?
Yeah, I think a lot of it, what everyone said, HYA for me was the most comfortable as well. Like you said, they answered our questions. The timeline was laid out very nice. How they're going to engage every stakeholder that we have in Prescott is good. So, and we do need help. So.
Yeah, and I'll just add, I did I looked back in my old notes from the previous time, 10 years, and we literally started this process of looking for a firm and hiring a firm right around the same week as we are right now. So it's like we're right on track with where we, what we did the last time around. And to what Vicki said, Mike, the person that we interviewed, gave us the confidence that now is the right time to be starting. We're going to get a solid pool of candidates that apply. They're already getting ready for us to make the approval, I think. So I think we're going to hit the ground running. We have the WASB conference next week that they're going to be soliciting and promoting all the openings that they're representing, and Prescott will be one of them. I feel really great about this, and you can see, this is a pretty intense timeline here, but there's opportunities for feedback from stakeholders via surveys, and again, there's going to be opportunities for people that want to volunteer and be on committees to help with the interview processes. So
I think that's something to point out, and you maybe did, and I I don't know, didn't listen to that part. But they did say that there's going to be about 15 plus stakeholder engagement opportunities. And that's, I think, a really important piece. Our community is very engaged in the superintendent. Leadership, just the position in general. Our staff are. They would work with our seniors at the high school, which I think is super cool, and just various stakeholders. So they said, I think the estimate was right around 15 different stakeholder groups. And what really, to me, set this group apart, besides the communication, was that they will kind of disseminate all of that information, put trends together, and share with us what the trends are from each of those stakeholder groups, which is important for me anyways.
Anything else? I do want to thank the board for pulling this together. This was we really had to push this to get this process going right away, so we weren't going to get behind the 8 ball and be late to the game on it. So I think the board pulled together really quick and adjusted schedules so we could do the interviews for the search firms and get a decision made tonight so we can be on track. So thank you. Anybody want to take the liberty here, make a motion?
I'll move to approve hiring HYA to assist Prescott School District with our superintendent search.
I'll second.
We have a motion, a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That one carries, and that is the end of our business section, finally. So
Now we're at the end.
Now we're going into information discussion, and we start with legislative updates and budget implications for state funding.
Let's get the agenda back up. This is more... Pardon me?
Nope, I'm just talking to myself.
Okay. And did you catch that? All right, so as we started the year, we added kind of a ongoing update with Teaching and Learning. And I think it's going to be imperative as the legislature gavelled back in with regards to starting to talk about the next biennium budget. And a lot of what we've talked about and why we went out for an operating levy is about how public schools are funded. And so we're going to start every month just talking about the topics with regards to understanding state funding 101. We've created basically a folder, and documents are going to be put in there with updates that are occurring. We wanted to make sure that people understood is that the governor is required to present their budget, and on Tuesday, February 18th, the governor will be releasing his recommendation for the 2025-2027 biennium budget. That is when the legislature then starts to engage. And as you know, one of the things that we're going to continue to talk about is that Mike has been very clear, and we talked about it with our 12 teachers last week, is that heading into this year, 6 of the 8 previous years, public school education per pupil received $0 while we navigated out of COVID and continue to address increased costs. The $325 that we are receiving this year and is and lags inflation. And so it is unfortunate that it is likely, if it's not changed, and there's not a lot of pull in Wisconsin right now to increase that $325, is that is going to put Prescott in a need to have further long-term conversations. So that Vision 2035 and understanding grounds and whether or not we have to consolidate instructional grades and reduce for Fund 50, where we're losing about $50,000 currently. We're going to have to cross-subsidize that, and a lot of it has to do with running 4 kitchens. So there's going to be a lot of work that we have to do building a budget for next year. I did want to just kind of remind what the priorities are across the state with 421 districts. We are really pushing for advancement of special education funding. 100% of school districts have to cross-subsidize. We currently put $1.8 million of Fund 10 into special education. That's on top of the additional money that we already receive. Every dollar that we would get through special education, more than we get now, would give us a Fund 10 back. And so right now the target is to elevate special education reimbursement to be 60% of the costs. That was promised all the way back in the 70s and has never come to fruition. Currently we get about 30% on the dollar. And so it would be 50% more or 200% more. But what we're really looking at is trying to make sure that they also make it fund sufficient. So right now, what they did is they gave a block grant for special education. It has depleted the first year, so we are getting prorated with regards to the funds that we're getting this year, and it will be less than what we received previously. Also, I think for Prescott being on the low revenue districts, remember that there is work with AEF to talk about equity and the formula to get 90% of the districts within the median. And so right now we are $47 above the lowest school district in the state, and that is really hard when you talk about providing competitive wages. Probably one of the greatest, I think, things that we've been able to do from a finance department and school board is, despite how we've been funded, how we've been underfunded in public education, the last 10 years, every single staff member has been able to get a raise. And previously, we've had years of freezes. We've had years where we were unable to advance people, and I think that that has been based on making really prudent, but sometimes very challenging decisions. And I think that that will continue to educate our community about that. I would really like more and more people to assist in having a voice down in Madison as they sit on $4 billion of local taxpayers' money, as well as have 1.9 in a rainy day fund. And again, the legislature is not a bank. We pay taxes for services. Prescott Public School is providing services. We are providing some of the top academics. We have wonderful athletics and a beautiful performing arts center that is serving students K-12. And I would encourage our community to continue to advocate for public education. Jeff Ryan sent a note to me. I invited all of our staff to be aware that at 7:30 tonight, the Public School Network was having a conversation about vouchers and decoupling how public education would be funded. There's pros and cons to that, but you better be aware because vouchers are going to continue. Private schools will be funded, and if it's part of public school funding, it drains it. If they get separated, then the question is, are they going to be fairly funded? And right now, special education, 100% of special education services provided in charters and private schools are reimbursed 100%, public education 30%.
Yep.
That's not equitable, it's not fair, it's not right, and we got to make it proper. So that's just a reminder that it's time, and we'll continue to gear up, and we'll talk a little bit later about the Superintendent School Board Convention where more advocacy can occur. Mm-hmm. So any comments?
Yeah, I think one thing I would like to add and let our community members know is we are actually here in Prescott. We have an assembly member and a senator that represent us, and they are both on the Joint Finance Committee. We have Shannon Zimmerman from River Falls, and then also Rob Schaffold from New Richmond. They are our representatives at the state level. They represent the people of Prescott They are not that far away. They are right next door. Now is the time to engage them in their offices, send emails, give them calls. Usually it's better if you make a phone call, write letters, do what you need to, but they are in our area, so I think it's really up to us now to use them to our advantage and get them the information, tell them where we're at with Prescott schools, the state of our funding, what our community is concerned about. Our community has seen taxes continue to go up, and we're needing to ask so we can keep the schools open. And they think at the state level that that's okay. We need to express to our representatives what we're feeling in our communities. And like I said, they are one of our assemblymen and one of our state senators. So I would encourage everyone to contact their offices.
Yeah, well said. Anything else?
No, well said, Vicki.
No.
No? Good. Yeah, thanks. All right, we're good with that one, Rick? Mm-hmm. So we'll move on to the teaching and learning update. Item B. Michael, back in the spotlight.
And do we have the right link, Michael?
It was just more slides on that last slideshow.
Okay.
Last slide.
All right.
Is that good?
That looks right.
All right, thank you.
All right. So board members, I got two updates for you tonight. One is that Human Growth and Development Advisory Committee that we talked about. So again, we have a policy about our human growth and development. Part of that policy has to follow some state statutes. Part of that is whenever you are updating your curriculum and instructional program for human growth and development, you need to have a citizens advisory committee to the board. It needs to have, as you can see on here, participation of staff, parents, healthcare professionals, members of clergy, and other residents of the district. And no one group can be more than 1/5 of that committee. That's what the statute says. Rick, if you go to the next slide here. So what we did is we did put out an advisory committee interest form to all of our parents. They got an email that same time. We posted on our district Facebook page soliciting people to apply. To date, we've had 14 applicants that have applied for that. The goal is that by the next school board meeting, the application does end at the end of January. If at the end of January, like right now, we don't have any clergy. So if we don't have any clergy by the end of January, then I'll reach out directly to our local clergy to try to find a representative. I know Rick and I have had the conversation of what do we do if no one steps up. Also, the conversation of how many people on advisory is a good number. So some of that I've listed at the bottom there. Effective size kind of depends on the goal and task. Here it is an advisory capacity of providing feedback. The statute and our policy lays out specifically what we must teach. So the advisory is going to look at that and the way that we're going to deliver it, and then give some of their thoughts and feelings to the board on that. So under 5, you're unrepresentative. If it's more than 15, it's kind of difficult to operate. We have 14 right now. However, when you have those larger groups, you do get to hear more viewpoints and opinions. You have more thoughtful recommendations, and the number of people that you have in the community that has knowledge of what's in that curriculum, and then also promoting that and sharing that information, that's also a good thing. So we're looking for clergy. The hard part is that, like any community, I'm sure when they do this, if they do this, it's difficult to put people in one box, right? So I had people, multiple boxes, which ones apply to you. All 14 that have applied said that they do have a current student within the Prescott School District. So great, we have parent representation. Obviously, majority of them are residents. One is actually an open enrolled student. They said they were a non-resident. So that's kind of an interesting perspective as well to have on there. We'll see where the numbers end up, and I'll give a recommendation to the board, but I think we want to hear all voices, so even if we have to follow the statute and have you only approve a certain number of people because it fits the different categories, I think we really want to invite all of these people that are interested in it to be part of that process, maybe just not on the official board. I don't know that you want to get into the process of eliminating who and where. I know 6 of those 14 said that they are in the medical field, and that's one of the fields that we have to have, one of the check boxes. So the hard part is the statute says you have to have no more than 1/5, but we also know local control kind of rules the land of how do you want to do it as well. Again, we're at 14 right now. You get a much bigger group, probably a little dysfunctional, but again, it's an advisory and giving you input means more for you to read and consider as we move forward. So that's sort of my development. I will share out with the board early February, again, end of January. So anyone who wants to still apply, please do so by the end of January. But I'll share those names and applications with the board so you can review the full slate as well. So that's Human Growth and Development update.
And I just wanted to thank Michael and kind of communications, and we got everything on the website. You guys turned this around very quickly and have announced it, and we'll probably do another push before the end of the month.
Yes.
So thanks.
All right, and then the only other one I had is Act 20, as you heard earlier, we're starting our Ames Web. That's our screener. From there, we're going to do a diagnostic. We've been using FastBridge for years. One of the benefits of FastBridge compared to other ones is that it gives you a screen to intervention report. So it kind of gives us the intervention plan for us, and that's part of what we need to develop for all of our students that are in those risk categories. But one of the other things that just recently came out is that part of our Act 20 district plan needs to include a promotion policy. And originally it was if the students were not meeting expectations on the forward exam, they would be held in 3rd grade. They have now stepped back from that and said we now have to have a policy if we are going to promote that, again, their plan would continue. We would still have interventions and supports in place. We have all of those things here. So the interesting part about the policy is that as a board, you have to have a policy in place by July 1. So no later than the June board meeting, you'd be needing to make this policy. However, the policy does not need to take effect until September 1 of 2027. So the board can decide between 2025 and 2027, when do we want to? I think they leave that leeway in there because as soon as you have it take effect, it then changes what's required for summer school. And the summer school requirement is that we are offering remedial courses in literacy for students that are on these plans. We already currently do that. We already give recommendations to any student that's in risk categories into our families. Again, they're recommendations if they want to take that recommendation or not. So the board will have to weigh that out. So we've got a model policy from DPI. I know Rick and Courtney are meeting with Neola later this month. Neola is working on now from a legal aspect, taking that and what would their policy look like in recommendation to us. Once they have that sort of their model policy, that's when we'll start that review process. But I just wanted to put it on your radar. Also, the other part is how many kids are we talking about? When I looked over the last couple of years, and again, it's difficult because they only separated reading from writing this last year, but in that case, we are only a 1 student difference. So for us, over the last 3 years, we're talking really about 30 students that would need to be considered for the plan. And part of that also is educating your families on the research behind retention and the negative things that come with retention as well. I know in this district we've recently had more of a, under Rick's guidance and even with Sandy Strand, we really need to be trying to promote students, and then what are we doing in terms of intervention and filling those gaps and needs that they have, because we know social emotional wise withholding students is the research doesn't support it. So just working with families and doing that, educating them on that part, and then ultimately in partnership with the family making a decision for what's best for the kiddos. So that's the update, and again, that'll be coming to you later on this spring, but by the June board meeting, we'll have to put a policy in place.
Awesome. Thanks, Michael. Anybody, any questions? No questions.
Thanks,
Good.
Michael.
All right, thanks, Michael. All right. So item C is school pictures, RFP.
you want to come up and quickly just state where we are, how many bids we have, and what's coming next month?
Yeah, I did share a slide. So it's basically a continuation from last month when I put up the slide about going RFP. And I don't know if we have the second slide available, but there's the first one from last month, the timeline that was set, and now we are past the deadline, and we received, as of January 8th, we did receive 4 school picture proposals. So right now, the screening and selection panel is basically assembled, and that first meeting of that group, I'm trying to schedule that for the week coming up, January 20th through the 24th. Maybe Micah would remember, I don't know if that's a 1 or 2 meeting process, but with only 4 proposals, I think we could get through it relatively quickly. And then when we make that decision as a panel, we will come back in February and present the decision.
Sounds good.
Awesome. Anybody have any questions here?
No questions.
Nope.
All right. Thanks, Rick.
Thank you.
Item D is the school board seat and election update.
Yes, so we know that there are 2 seats that are available in April 1st. At the beginning of January, anybody interested was required to submit. Courtney Johnson was here through 5 o'clock on January, was it 3rd? 7th? Okay, all right. It was Tuesday. And basically, we received 2 applicants for the open seats, Mike Matzik and Vicki Rudolph. We received no other applicants to run for the school board. By default, we also needed to randomly select who would be first and who would be second on the ballot. And Courtney, who was number 1? And number 2 was Vicki Rudolph. I know that you have side bets on FanDuel, and so we'll see how that turns out and whether or not the first position helps or not.
Matt, you can set the line.
I actually did that once and did not win. So I think I had to bring steaks for everybody.
I think we better put a point in the back of my car. All right. So again, thank you for community members willing to step forward, and the election will be in April.
All right. Thank you. Well, we'll just move on.
January Superintendent and School Board Convention is held next week. We, myself, Mike, and Tanya will be down there. Wanted to just give both of them an opportunity to talk a little bit about what they focus on, and relative to kind of the job study, there were other things that Tanya wanted to emphasize that she'll be participating as well.
I did not necessarily want to emphasize, but I am going to. No, it was good. So I know my focus is really going to be on teacher retention, compensation. I was just looking at what was up. One session is on developing competitive and flexible compensation schedules. There's another one about placing the compensation piece in the attraction and retention puzzle. There's one about strategically attracting and retaining high-quality staff. So there's a whole bunch right around an area that I think we're really focusing on as a board and as a district right now, which is our compensation package. So that's going to be my main focus. There's a few of them on getting a new superintendent and how to do relationships and stuff. So I'll probably try to get to 1 or 2 of those as well.
Yeah, and I guess my primary focus at the convention will be to be the delegate at the WASB Delegate Assembly meeting, and that's basically what it is every school district has an opportunity to send a delegate from their school board to vote on resolutions to bring to the legislation for consideration, and basically lobby for school funding in different areas and other policy changes that matter. I plan on spending all weekend looking at the packet to see what resolutions will be.
If it makes you feel any better,
and I'll be.
Ex-board member Steve Sizemore used to send us all the packet too, so we could also look at it. So,
but it's a quite interesting process. So I actually look forward to it.
All right, that's it.
Yeah, that's item E. So we'll move it on to off of information and discussion on the recognition of visitors. Anybody care to be recognized at this time? Considering that there's the same group of people here, I'm going to say no. We don't. So we're going to move on, and we are going to have the board consider a motion to convene into closed session under exemptions 1985 1CF in room A117. And this is for employee one, the new superintendent salary range, employee R 2016 for HR. Do I want to read that?
No.
No, I don't. So it's employee 1, 2, and 3 then, right?
Yep.
All right. And then the 1985 1F is about another, for an employee about financial, and I'm not going to read the statute, but it's regarding another employee. Is that fair? Yeah, better watch out when I say that. Okay. Got a little bit too much information on the sheet. So we can have somebody make a motion here to consider going into closed session and maybe pick a time.
I move to go into closed session at 8:20. Does that give people enough time?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That carries, and we will roll call in at 8:20 to close session. Thank you, everyone.